Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. An economic system is much like a natural ecosystem. If a new predator enters the ecosystem, it will create an unbalance until it naturally settles again. This is what we're seeing in the auto industry. There is a new predator named Tesla, and the prey are the legacy autos. Every time somebody buys a Tesla, well, it means they likely didn't buy an ICE car, as in one more converted customer that the legacy autos have lost. As Tesla ramps up more and increases the delivery numbers, then there'll be less and less people buying ICE cars. That all makes sense, right? Most people who are buying Teslas are not simply adding to their personal fleet, but likely replacing it with their previous ICE car. And Tesla is not just ramping up, but ramping up exponentially. Exponentials are very interesting and can catch people off guard. Exponential growth can almost feel like it comes out of nowhere. I'm not sure the legacy autos are expecting Tesla to be delivering quite as many cars as we expect, or even Tesla claim. I definitely don't think they're expecting Tesla to hit 10 million units a year as early as 2025 or 2026. For legacy autos to collectively lose 10 million sales a year, well, that's a huge hit. Of course, it won't stop there either. Tesla may have hit some real momentum by this stage and have their battery production seriously ramped up. Obviously, Tesla are currently only offering a very limited number of model variants. Even by 2025 or so, they likely still won't have that many new additions. However, I would say there's a good chance that Tesla's vehicle prices may have come down by then. If not, their costs certainly have. But I would assume by this stage, they are starting to pass on some of their savings to the customers. But the model variants Tesla do have are competing heavily with some of the legacy auto equivalents. Say, for example, the Model 3 is a direct competitor to the BMW 3 Series. Of course, the Model 3 is significantly better value automobile. But say, for example, that the Model 3 will affect the BMW 3 Series sales so much that sales are down 30%. What would that mean for BMW? Now, if sales are down 30%, it doesn't simply mean that profit is also down 30% too. As the fewer cars sold, the less economies of scale is available. Yeah, just with a drop in that many sales, there will need to be some serious downsizing. Production will drop. And of course, Tesla is having this effect on other various models from other legacy autos. And the legacy autos probably realize this downtrend is not temporary. And I just said 30%, but perhaps by 2025 it might even be closer to 50%, although I hope it's much higher than that again. Legacy autos have invested significant amounts of capital in all these legacy systems. If there's only half as many sales, then it might deflate the systems. Car dealers will be selling half as many cars, or perhaps there'll be half as many car dealers, as many will go out of business. Legacy may cut back on advertising a bit, but they need to advertise to sell cars, and if sales are down, then they may even have to advertise more, with some amazing specials to try harder to compete with EVs. In other words, either way, the cost of advertising per car would increase. This is part of the economies of scale dwindling, which will eventually mean that legacy autos would need to raise prices, or else they'll start to lose money on their ICE sales as well as their EV sales. Oh, as if demand wasn't dropping enough already. Well, if they have to raise prices, likely a noticeable amount, then demand will obviously drop further. What is happening here is that ICE cars are increasing in price while EVs are reducing in price. Oh, also, we have emission standards continually being raised, which means more R&D and cost in ICE cars to keep them legal. Legacy autos would eventually have to consolidate various market segments. For example, BMW currently has several versions of crossovers and SUVs, an X1, X2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. This might be reduced to just the X3 and X5, and possibly the X7, as the high-end luxury market may want more variety and willing to pay for it, or perhaps BMW might just have the X5 only. Or whatever. Either way, they have to consolidate their market segments, as offering this many varieties of models is simply not feasible without the economies of scale anymore. You see, legacy autos have invested large amounts of capital to achieve these economies of scale because the return on investment was good, or at least looked good at the time. But now profit is drying up. The return on this capital is suddenly not so good. A lot of this capital is old in antiquated facilities with antiquated equipment. All of Tesla's, well, its factories and equipment are all brand new and state-of-the-art. Another thing very hard to compete with, having to replace all your factories and equipment. Oh, of course, Tesla's factories are also designed around EVs and batteries, not ICE. Some legacy autos will feel it harder than others. Audi, BMW, Mercedes, for example, the prestige brand of auto, the market segment Tesla rules. Even though legacy autos may have reduced their production levels, there is also the OPEX, which again is part of the economies of scale. Well, a lot of this OPEX is the same whether they produce 1 million cars a year or 2 million. So the OPEX per vehicle rises, and thus the price of the cars follow. Now, if legacy autos plans have gone to perfection, something I think that might not be likely, then some of them could be up at around 1 million electric vehicles a year by themselves by 2025. Of course, these legacy EVs will have to be at a similar price point to Tesla, whether through losing money on every sale or government subsidies. Well, that might now mean that a new electric BMW sedan is quite possibly competing at a similar price as an ICE BMW 3 Series. So their own EV offerings will cannibalize their existing products, only further reducing demand. The infamous Osborne effect. Eventually, government may need to come in and support legacy, but what can they really do other than subsidize the sale of ICE cars that are losing money on every sale? I mean, they can't force people to buy ICE. So what would be the point in that? Say if a Model 3 is $35,000 and a BMW 3 Series starts at $40,000, then the BMW may have to reduce its price to $30,000 per car to have a chance to compete with the Tesla, implying that BMW may lose $10,000 a sale on this strategy. So I don't think that's likely. Perhaps if this EV bill passes, then some of the incumbent autos may be able to produce a profit from a few hybrid models, but this would only be in the US. Oh, also, I think a BMW 3 Series starts at $42,000 already today for the bottom range version, and surely Tesla could have got a Model 3 down to $35,000 at that stage. So I don't think this strategy would work. People love to tell me that governments will bail out legacy, but no one has once shown me the economies of how that's possible. You see, unlike previous bailouts, consumers no longer want their products, opposed to just that they can't afford a new car because of an economic downturn. I'm still not sure that battery prices are going to come down as much as legacy autos are expecting, at least not nickel-based batteries. They could even rise in price. But let's say that legacy have made some improvements in batteries and are about where Tesla were in 2017 with the Model 3 2170 battery technology, and they managed to get the price down to $100 per kilowatt hour, which means maybe they can sell their EVs at break even. But can we begin to imagine the product offering comparison between a 2025 BMW EV and a 2025 Tesla? It's not going to be a contest. In fact, we know the specifications of 2025 legacy autos, because that's usually the EVs they like to tell us about, because they don't make any decent ones now. Instead, they like to explain how they're going to compete with today's Tesla specs with their 2025 EV releases. Spoiler alert, nothing revolutionary to expect in a 2025 legacy EV. Whereas Teslas, well, Elon tells us they're literally going to be flying. So in this scenario, we're saying that Tesla are at 10 million sales a year, but that doesn't mean that Tesla are taking 10 million sales a year away from legacy autos. It's not entirely zero sum. Just because Tesla are making more sales doesn't mean that legacy are making an equal number of fewer sales. Bear in mind, the average new car buyer probably doesn't quite realize yet how impressive a Tesla is over an ICE vehicle, or even all the benefits of an EV. Well, obviously, the way EVs are exponentially proliferating through the economy, more and more people will exponentially understand the benefits of EVs and Teslas. Now, although that will not increase EV sales, as it's likely every EV will sell and can't increase supply enough, but this will increase EV demand, which will decrease demand from ICE even more. So although Tesla may be making 10 million cars a year, the demand for them could still be well in excess of that. These are just the number of cars Tesla are capable of making and selling, meaning that there may be another 10 million people on a waiting list for a Tesla, i.e. a 1-year waiting list. So what just happened there? Well, that's an extra 10 million fewer customers legacy will lose. But there's demand for 70 to 80 million vehicles a year globally. If there aren't enough EVs available, then wouldn't they just buy ICE anyway? Well, what kind of people are buying new cars? People who can afford to buy new cars, implying their current car was probably new too, or at least likely fairly modern when purchased. So if they have to wait an extra year for a Tesla, then they can probably hang on to their existing car for an extra year, and it likely won't break down due to being so modern. I mean, instead of getting 3 to 5 years out of it, they might be able to get 4 to 6 years. No big deal. Oh, but what about people with 20-year-old cars that are about to become written off and have finally broken down to an extent they're unfeasible to repair? What do they do for a new car? Well, they'd want to get another used car, but the problem is the usual people they purchase these cars from, well, they aren't selling now. They're waiting for their Tesla. Therefore, I expect used car prices to increase. It may not even be feasible anymore for many people to own a used car. This could result in people having to find alternative forms of transport. This is a thing that could really happen. Just because we need 70 million cars a year doesn't mean there'll always be that many available. I mean, what if all the legacy autos had gone totally bankrupt by this stage and were no longer making cars anyway? Elon has said if there was a button to stop making ICE cars right now, then he would not push that button. But if we are capable of 30 to 40 million EVs annually, then maybe Elon won't mind so much if we push the button at that stage. This means that ICE prices could increase even higher, supply and demand. If some people need a car right now and don't want to wait a year for an EV, then they have to pay what it costs. The price of used cars should also increase too through the same economic circumstances, whilst we're undergoing this transition. But what about people who can no longer afford a vehicle as a result? Well, they still need a mode of transport. They'll have to bus, bike, scoot, train, Uber or walk. although it might be too much demand for the public transport systems. But it's 2025, and we probably have in excess of 20 million Teslas that are FSD compatible on the road, right? What's the other potential substitute for transportation that might have serendipitously emerged at the right time? Of course, robo-taxis. A lot of people are dubious about robo-taxis and unsure whether people will actually use them or not. Well, what if you are in this scenario where you can't afford a car and public transport has become too busy? It likely won't even cost that much more than a bus and will get you to your destination a lot more convenient in a much more enjoyable way. And yes, there'll be plenty of people willing to let their Tesla out in the robo-taxi network. There are even people with orders of fleets in preparation already. On top of that, there may be other ICE cars in different segments that Tesla have not been competing with so head-on. These ICE cars might still be utilising economies of scale and thus can compete against the other ICE cars that are suffering, which means the suffering ICE cars may suffer even more. Perhaps the BMW 3 Series sedan is being affected, but the BMW 4 Series coupe is not, as Tesla don't offer a coupe. So what do BMW do here? They have to raise the prices of the 3 Series, but they don't have to raise the prices of the 4 Series. Then the 3 Series ends up costing a lot more than the 4 Series. So BMW owners buy a 4 Series instead, again taking the suffering 3 Series down further. This is obviously very much a vicious circle. This is what a broken business and industry looks like. It is left in pieces. They are not able to create a solid business plan because the rest of it is broken. The pieces no longer connect. They are at a loose end. Right, so legacy autos are in big trouble if Tesla reached 10 million by around this time. Of course, legacy would have been suffering the entire way along and would have struggled to make it this far in the first place. Oh, but it's not just Tesla making EVs though, is it? No. In fact, the Chinese are likely also producing perhaps 20 million EVs a year too. Although the chances are the vast majority of these will be sold domestically in China. China is the world's largest car market. It's a big market for legacy autos. Obviously, they will lose just about all of that market from the locally made EVs. And for any Chinese consumers who want the prestige of a foreign brand, well, they can just buy a Tesla. That's another big market for legacy autos to lose. And given how motivated the Chinese are to go electric, this will happen. Not only that, Chinese EVs batteries are in abundance and getting cheaper, so they can scale up, unlike legacy EVs, potentially. So what happens to legacy autos? I mean, they may have carved out an EV business by this stage, but it may not be particularly profitable, at least profitable to legacy autos. For another company that doesn't have to use legacy systems like auto dealerships and have unions and the enormous debt, then that might add a further $15,000 profit per car. That's a big difference. And that alone makes it very hard for legacy to survive. I really think legacy will go bankrupt, but some company or companies might pick out a few of the potentially profitable EV lines that legacy are making and their battery factories. I think these companies are most likely going to be someone like LG, SK Innovation, Panasonic or Samsung, actual battery companies that understand how to make batteries, just like how legacy autos know how to make internal combustion engines. But that would mean any new ICE auto sales would be pretty much finished. Wow, okay, that was a lot to work through, but I thought it was quite interesting and just one other way this might play out. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.